What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Classic Octane. I am Taylor. Today we are back on the R100GS project. I'm approaching the end of this. The main things I have left to do are tires, a front brake. I did buy a caliper rebuild kit, so hopefully that gets us where we need to go. Right now it's very sticky. We still need to do some like carb syncing and some other small maintenance items, but that's really the main things that are left to my knowledge. So we're going to start off with getting some tires done. For whatever reason, tires have always really irritated me on motorcycles. This one shouldn't be too bad. Obviously, single-sided swing arm makes it easy to remove this rear wheel. Doesn't get much simpler than that. So I'm going to be doing this all by hand, of course. I've come dangerously close to buying a tire machine. Probably like 5 or 6 times, but they're just to that price point where it's hard for me to justify. If I was doing like multiple tires a week, I could justify it. At this point, I'm doing like 2 tires a month, tops. So for the money the machine costs and the real estate it would take up in the shop, just do it by hand. A bike like this is not bad. Plus, it can teach you how to do it out on the trail. The tires I'm going to be using are ones I've actually used on a few different bikes. So the same ones I had on the KLR. They are Shinko 705s. Yeah, they're just like a very reasonably priced kind of dual purpose tire. I think they're probably like 70-30 on road versus off road. So they have a little bit of an aggressive tread, but still very streetable. This part can be a bit tricky, especially if the tires are pretty old and the rubber is hard. We just need to kind of separate it from the outside lip of the rim. So we need to kind of squeeze it. Again, Tire Machine has this nice bar that just compresses it and, you know, takes about 4 seconds to do, but since we are operating by hand, try to get a couple of these in here. There we go. So once it just goes below the lip, you can kind of work it around. Just like that, and flip it over. Do the same thing this side. I'm not going to worry about these little rim protectors on this. These wheels have an extra large lip, and these aren't going to work. So we'll just be kind of careful, try not to mar these things up too much. Alright, one lip up, and remove the tube. Just like that, and we're ready for the other lip of the tire. Let's get these in place. And we'll go 1, 2, 3. Bam. Easy as that. There's a few things to remember when you are putting the new tire and tube on. One is there are tires that are directional. Quite a few motorcycle tires are directional. Any one that is, there's going to be a little arrow and it's going to be telling you the direction of rotation. So it's right here. It says if it's in the front wheel, it's going to rotate this way. If it's on the rear wheel, it's going to rotate that way. So we know this is the left side of our bike. So the tire is going to rotate counterclockwise when we're looking at it, which means this tire goes like that. On this rim, there's also an arrow of rotation. It's pointing this direction, so just make sure those match up, of course. Next thing is going to be lube. Lube on these is absolutely critical because a dry rubber tire is going to take a lot of force to get onto the rim, and a lot of force equals a good opportunity for you to pinch your tube with your tool. Ask me how I know. Done it a million times. So you could use whatever you want for lube. Ideally, you use something that's going to evaporate, not too quickly, but enough to where you don't have some sort of lubricant stuck on your tire forever, because obviously that could be extremely dangerous. So a lot of people use like soapy water. There is special tire lubricant that you can get. And basically we're just looking to heavily coat right where the rim goes so that it's going to be pretty easy to slide over. Tire's all lubed up, so we can just start to slide that bottom in place, and then bam, just like that. So nice and easy to do when things are lubed up. I'm going to grab our new tube. What I'm going to do is put a little bit of air in this so that it kind of holds its shape. We don't want too much air in it, or it can kind of make it more difficult for us to get the rest of the tire on. I'll put about this much air in. Might prove to be a bit too much, but we'll see. Now we're just going to line up our valve stem with the hole in the rim and start to tuck this thing in. Feed our valve stem through the hole. Put on our little nut that will hold it. Just like that. Okay, now we're on to the potentially trickiest part. Also, the part that has the most opportunity to mess up. And that comes from what I mentioned earlier, which is pinching the tube. So when you're putting these on, you're going to be reaching under here and you're going to be cranking like this. It's pretty easy to grab just a little bit of meat on that tube and pinch it up against the rim and puncture it. So a good rule of thumb is never bring your tire iron past 90 degrees from the wheel. If you're all the way down here, you're in a really good spot to pinch a tube. So if you have enough lube and you have 3 hands, ideally, you'll never have to go above 90 degrees in order to get this to slide into place. So what I do, since I'm a one-man operation, is I slide over here next to my lift, and I use my lift as a third hand. So I put it in here. Since it's the first one, I can reach down and make sure I don't have any tube on there. And I can reach it down, and I can wedge this under the lift just like that. So I know it's past 90 degrees, but I know for a fact that there's no tube being pinched. Give you guys a better angle so you can see what I'm doing. So now what we need to do is just start to walk this tube around. So just like this. Grab the next one. Just being, again, very careful not to go too far. And you can see, like, right as I get to 90, this side's like basically under already. Come over here. Bring this to 90. If you're having to force it too much, when you're going to get yourself in trouble. So now that we're getting, towards the last section, a big help is to press down on the opposing side. Get this down into the little ridge or the little valley, whatever you want to call it, here in the middle of the rim. So if you want to like kneel on this, it'll basically give the lip of the tire a little bit more room for you to be able to continue to walk this around. All right, this could be potentially the last one. Again, making sure we don't go too far. Let the lube do the work. Boom. Just like that. So, in theory, we should be able to air this up. All right, we're at 30. I don't hear any hissing. We did it. Success. We can tighten down our little lock nut on the valve stem. Throw our cap on. She's ready to go back on the bike. What this does not do, obviously, is any sort of balancing. For what I found, adventure bikes with these knobby tires, I kind of just ride out the way that they are. I know some tire manufacturers will put a mark on the tire itself. You'll see like a little dot. And the idea is that that dot is kind of the heaviest spot. So you put it, 180 degrees away from the valve stem to try and kind of manage it. This one does not have that, I don't think. I don't see any kind of dot or marking, unless that's it. But either way, adventure bikes, I just don't bother balancing them, just because, one, I don't have the equipment to do so. Two, you're going to get a rock or something stuck in here anyway, throw your balance way off. So this is ready to mount back on the bike. So I'm going to move on to the front now, and how I'm going to do that is these BMW engineers are pretty clever, and this center stand is actually very close to being in the center for a reason, so that this bike can actually kind of teeter-totter on that center stand. So what I'm going to do is take two ratchet straps to the back of my lift on either side. I'm going to loosen the straps in the front, tighten the straps in the back, so that I'm keeping 4 points of connection, 2 legs of that, 2 straps, and basically just tilt the bike back so the front wheel is going to be off the ground. It's that easy. Go. Now we're nice and secure, and the front wheel is off the ground. Still a little locked up because of our bad front brake. I'll show you guys pulling the front wheel off. I'm not going to bore you with changing this tire because it's literally exactly the same process that we just did. Should be able to pull out this axle bolt. Drop it like that. Perfect. Now we have to remove these 4 6mm. Should just be able to loosen these, I would think. In theory, we should be able to slide our axle out now. probably have two spacers kind of fall. There's one. There's our axle out. Put it down here. Keep track of the space and orientation for each one of those spacers. The other one is on this side, but front brake is really stuck. There we go. And up and out. Front tire is all done. Let's just say I'm glad that I showed you guys the rear tire, because the amount of expletives required to get the front tire mounted would have caused this video to be demonetized. So let's just say I'm glad it's over. So I have the rebuild kit here. Repair kit R100 1984 to 1996. So it is Brembo branded. I'm assuming this is the right part. I searched for, I don't know if the GSs are any different than the regular R100s, which is why I question it, but we shall see. So in here, it looks like I have two piston seals, two kind of dust seals. There's two Allen bolts in here, and there's two larger Allen bolts there, so we get to replace all of our hardware. One small O-ring and a little bit of brake grease, and that's it. So two big seals. Alright, I've messed with these exactly 0 times, just like most of the stuff on these BMWs, but we can figure it out. So this looks like it is a 2-piston caliper that is kind of sandwiched together, if that makes sense. So what I'm going to try to do is get the brake pads out of here, because I'd like to use the pressure from the master cylinder to be able to push those pistons and actually get them to come out, or very close to being out, just because they're going to be a little bit more difficult to remove. But what I don't know is if I'm going to have enough kind of space to do that. We shall see. It looks like there's 2 pins I can remove. Here's one brake pad. So the brake pads actually seem like they have a ton of meat on them, so I actually didn't order replacements for that. So we'll put that aside. Reach in here. There's our other brake pad. Also still has a ton of meat left. Put our 2 pins down. Our little rattle clip in the middle. Okay, so I see 2 kind of dust seals around this piston. These right here, which the kit comes with new ones. Let me squeeze this a few times, see what kind of movement we get. So I can see my piston coming out here. See if I can remove this dust seal. Okay. I'm going to keep pumping. See if I can get this piston to come all the way out. Looks like this is just about to come out. Another little pin that goes in the middle there. What I'm worried about is if this one comes out, will the other one be able to come out easily as well? I guess we'll figure it out. we go, there's one piston. Now, of course, the other one's not going to come out now that we let all the fluid out. So I think we're safe to go ahead and separate the two halves of the caliper. It'll just be these two 8 mils. They are in there. There we go. So there's our little O-ring. Our other one goes in between the two halves. Cool. So I probably should have disconnected this brake line beforehand, but I'm going to go ahead and disconnect that, and we're going to bring this whole assembly over to the bench. It'll be easier to work on. Got everything over here on the workbench. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can, okay, yeah. Pull out the little O-ring there. So I'll have to remember that. There's definitely a good amount of kind of gunk in here. Also, right around the inside of this is that piston seal that we are looking to replace. So I'm going to get a small pick. Pull that out. That's about as stripped down as we need that side to be. This side, we need to try and get this piston out of here. I'm going to try the air trick first. So if you've never seen the air trick, basically what I'm going to do is block this hole, which goes to the other side of the caliper, with my thumb, and stick air in this other hole where the original line went in. And pop it out. Just like that. Not so bad. So this side is going to get the exact same treatment. Just a really good cleanup, inspection, pull the seal. I'm going to take my aerosol brake parts cleaner, spray out all the passages, and just get this thing ready to kind of reassemble with all the new O-rings. All the components are nicely cleaned up. I'm ready for, I'm going to put my little O-ring in there. Actually, I feel like I'm going to lose it, so I'm going to put it right there for now because I want to do piston seals. These are square O-rings, so you just want to make sure that they go in the right orientation and aren't twisted anywhere around. Just like that. Put a little bit of this grease around piston seal. Just make sure we have some nice free movement in there, nothing crazy. That. And then what do you think? We do pistons and then, yeah, probably pistons like that. There's like a little, okay, there's like a little lip on this outside that these dust boots kind of clip into, just like that. Same story on this side. Sweet. Now we can put our little O-ring in there. And these will sandwich back together, just like this. So I'm going to bring this over to the bike. We can put it back on, then we can slide our brake pads up through, throw our pins in, get this thing ready to bleed. Got the master cylinder cleaned out, the old fluid, some fresh DOT 4 in there. I'm going to attempt to use my Mighty Vac. I have a hate relationship with this thing. I feel like I've never had great results with it, but why not try it again? So in this method, I just have a hose going into a water bottle with brake fluid already in it. And what I'm doing is since it has fluid in the bottom, I can crack the bleed screw open and just start pumping. And because it's not allowing air to be sucked back up, I can already feel a decent amount of resistance now. So what I'm going to do is close this, double check that our fluid level is still good in the master, and top it up a little bit. So what I'm going to do now is pump it a couple times, hold it, release and let off, just like that. I'm still getting some little bubbles. I'm just going to keep pumping until these tiny bubbles stop. I'm going to go ahead and stop on this side. Switch over to this other side, see if there's a little pocket of air over there. Oh yeah. Once we bled that side, nice firm lever. Just double check that these are tight. Get our bottle as low as possible so we can get as much of this fluid out of there. Alright. Looking good. So now what I'm going to need to do is spread our pads back out a little bit, which is just really easy to do with a little screwdriver if you're careful. That way we have enough room for our disc to come back in here. In theory, I could have waited to do this when the disc is in place, but it's just a little bit harder to get to this inside bleed screw with the whole wheel and everything here as well. We're ready for the front wheel to go back on. Kind of thread it in here. And then make sure our disc is going in. Our rotor, I should say. Everything's torqued down. Nice free movement. Now let's check our work. Hey, what do you know? We have nice free wheel and then front brake that stops. Fancy. Well, that's going to do it for this episode, guys. We got a lot of good progress done today. In the next video, I need to dive into a little bit of carb tuning. So we're going to figure out how to synchronize the carbs, make sure everything is set up properly so we can get this thing to actually start and idle and run well. Then it's a couple of cosmetic things. I think I'm going to need to repaint these wind guards. They're just really dark and faded. So I'll probably hit those up, and then we are danger close to the end to being able to take this thing out for a spin. So I hope you guys stay tuned for that, and I'll see you on the next one.